Mr. MCLA, is that you, sir?
Mr. Aaron, MC Vivid, how are you doing, sir?
You know, it's funny you call me MC Vivid. I was with A2 the other night, and he kept introducing me as MC Vivid. And I told him I'm not Mick Vivid. I'm a Vivid MC.
Apology.
No, don't worry, man. You don't have to apologize. Um,
Well, at least you didn't call me La, so that's a good start.
does that happen?
Often, especially from people who perhaps don't know me or haven't heard me spit. They just know my name from online, let's say, or they've seen my name on flyers, and they've never actually heard anybody. They've never heard me say I'm MCLA or anybody call me MCLA. They just know of MCLA, and again, they may have even heard me spit, but they just know the visual of my name. There's no actual dot in the name, so yeah, it happens.
Well, you know what? Now that you say that, you can't blame them. Why is there no dot? You must have consciously made the effort to say there's no dot. Why is that?
I never made an effort. I guess without the dot, it's more aesthetically pleasing. Like, there's no real dot in MC. It's capitalized, so I've seen it spelt with the dot. I've seen it spelt with two dots, and it just doesn't look as good with, MC with no dots and then L dot A dot, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. I was trying to visualize, like, I don't have the visual, but I was trying to do it in my head, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. It doesn't look right.
Yeah, so.
But
With the MCLA, it looks pretty kind of, round, so.
it's aesthetically and symmetrically pleasing. With that, we are recording. I got to give you a heads up. We are rolling right now.
That's fine. I assumed that because I've watched your other videos, so yeah.
Okay, cool. With that, I gotta let the listeners know who they're listening to here. This is MCLA. Please fill in anything I miss out here. What I know of MCLA is he's a pioneer of our scene. I first met, for those who don't know, LA stands for Little Andy. I met Andy in 99, 2000, 2001, sometime around there, right at the beginning of my beginning in the scene. And I was a kid. So when I met Andy, he was an even younger kid. And I remember him having a baseball cap autographed with like Mystical and Sniper, and you had this baseball cap that you wore that had all the DJ's autographs. And I remember you coming through the line at the docks, and I was like, who is this? And everyone knew who you were. That's Little Andy. That's Little Andy. I think you even had written an article in Nexus magazine. Am I right in saying that?
You are indeed.
Right? Okay. And somebody had put me on to that. And I read what you had written, and I was like, here's a kid who's doing something on his own. I have to say, I don't directly say you inspired me because I can't think of it, but you must have inspired me because you were doing things before I was. I was a party goer.
Thank you.
When it's the truth, Andy, you were interviewing people, you were trying to hustle the Toronto scene and promote Toronto artists. And
Trying to get in, man. I was trying to get in, trying to get my foot in the door, and trying to have fun at the same time, which I think I did as a youngster anyway.
You definitely, I know you got your foot in the door. I hope you had fun. But now you're living overseas on the other side of the Atlantic. And with that, it leads into my first question, which is, do you watch soccer now?
I don't, and so the answer to that would be no. And a lot of my friends and colleagues in England would scorn you for saying soccer. I've stuck with the word soccer because to me it'll always be soccer. Almost stubbornly, I almost say it to sort of, piss people off in a cheeky kind of way. I don't actually, mean anything negative or mean any disrespect or any insensitivity when I say soccer. But yeah, I still call it soccer. I don't particularly watch it. I really, especially when I first moved to England back in 2012, I tried to give it a chance. It's huge. It's part of, it's part of the fabric over here in Europe. But I just couldn't get into it. I've never really been a huge sports fan. My only real passion that I'm really passionate about would be hockey and the Leafs. I went to Jays games, I went to Raptors games. We were super lucky in Toronto as well to have all those huge franchises, and fairly good players in all of our teams throughout the years. But I was never really waiting for the next Jays game or whatever. It was more just something to do. But hockey, I was like super into, super passionate about.
Well, then, have you been watching? Are you watching what's going on? Have you seen the team the Leafs have this year and what's going on there in the playoffs now? Are you keeping up?
I haven't. I haven't. Mainly because the time difference. So the games show either starting at midnight or 1 a.m. and going to sort of 3 or 4. So it's really tough in situations where I have been working. It's been almost impossible. And then obviously even when I'm not working, say on a Saturday night, I don't really have many Saturdays where I have the luxury to stay in and watch hockey between 1 and 4 in the morning. So no, I haven't really watched. I'll tell you when the last time I was really watching was when we were in the playoffs. I want to say last time. Was that like about 3-4 years ago? Was that the last time we were in the playoffs, or have we made it since?
I believe it was in 2012, but I'm the wrong person to ask, Andy.
Yeah.
I'm not much of a fan.
Okay, so I think the last time that I was really watching was when we were like in the playoffs and we might have gone to like sort of round 2 or something like that. I was in England. I was like staying up, going to work late. Not going to work tired. Sorry, staying up late, going to work tired. And I was watching. Then. But other than that, I haven't really, unfortunately, been following. So please forgive me, everyone. However, I have a bit more freedom of time right now. I know that the first game is tomorrow, our first game versus Boston, and I'm going to try and watch it.
See, and the thing is, I try my best to stay away from date stamps with these videos because there's a queue going, and by the time this plays, the Leafs may not even be in the playoffs anymore.
You know what? I know that we spoke about this before. I know that we spoke about that you mentioned that to me when we were sort of setting up the interview, and just as I said tomorrow, it kind of hit me. I was like, oh, I just time stamped it. So apologies.
No, Andy. It's
cat's out of the bag. It's not.
Well, and here's the thing. I hope it's a premonition.
It's not going to be edited.
No, there's no edit. I hope it's a premonition, and that when we look back on this video, we're like, oh my God, they won the cup, and we were just talking about game 1. Right? Okay, with that, what's your favorite board game? If you had to pick one growing up, Kerplunk counts as a board game. I don't give a shit what people say. Jenga is a board game. So those count. What's your favorite board game growing up?
Wow. You didn't give that to me in the list of possible questions. Let me see. You know what? I'm gonna go with Monopoly. I really liked Monopoly. And then other than Monopoly, perhaps something like more simple, classic. I liked Battleship.
Okay.
4. As just those, really kind of simple games. I guess that would sort of be the top 3. But if I had to pick one, I'd say Monopoly. It was a lot, sort of like real life. It was business oriented, hustling. You could make money. You could be a tycoon. Like it made sense to me. It didn't really take, it didn't take a lot of, learning to get the hang of Monopoly.
No, kids can lose to their parents every night in the game of Monopoly. And it's the horrible thing is that it really is one of those games that you tear people apart.
Did you mean that parents could lose to their kids, or that kids could lose to their parents?
Either or.
Okay. Alright. Okay.
But it's not one of those ones where you ever see parents giving kids like a sympathy. Louis C.K. did a great joke around it, where he was like, okay, honey, you see this? This is all mine now. Okay? All this shit that you once owned is all daddy's, and I'm going to use it to kill your sister. Okay? You don't get to play anymore. But
no shame.
What would you say is, I don't know if you're a TV guy, but I had to ask, what's your favorite show on television or Netflix right now? Are you a binger? What are you into?
So I am a big TV guy. I always have been. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Um, Let me see. Well, I'll tell you something interesting. I live in Spain right now, so there's not a huge amount of English offerings on TV. So, for instance, I'm into. Can't even think of the name of what it's called right now. What's the show that's sort of the new sort of nerdy slash cool
Silicon
show?
Valley?
Sorry?
Silicon Valley?
No, 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 no. It's a sitcom with one of the guys from Roseanne. I really can't think of the name, but I'm sure the people watching who know the show will know what that show is. So for what's actually on the TV, I'm sort of reduced to whatever English shows there are, and then I can switch them into English and watch those on the TV. I do have Netflix as well. I recently re-signed up for Netflix, and what I'm currently watching is the assassination of Gianni Versace. That's sort of a new show on Netflix. Really good, and it's like a dramatic reenactment of the events that led up to the assassination of Gianni Versace. Another great Netflix show. I mean, I know this is going to kind of sound taboo, but it does for a reason, which is Breaking Bad. I only watched all of it last year. When it was all the major hype and stuff. I've never been a hype guy. So when something's like hype, when everybody's like, "Oh, this is the thing," I'm like, no, that's not for me. I was like, I don't want anything to do with it. But later on, I got into it and found that to be fantastic as well. They've got Trailer Park Boys on Netflix, and they've got like new seasons and stuff like that Netflix has actually got it produced, I guess, after the show went off Showcase, which is cool. I don't know. I almost want to go into like my Netflix and see, what's in my.
Well, hold on. Let me say some stuff on what you just said. First of all, you're talking to a Canadian, and most of my listeners are Canadian. So to talk to us about the status of Trailer Park Boys is like bringing sand to the beach in a sense. I'm personally not into season 12. I know that's the latest, but John Dunsworth, the actor who played Jim Leahy, has passed away, and I've heard he's in that season.
I heard about that.
So a lot of people are getting on that because they want to see the last, chance to see Mr. Leahy. To touch in on your Gianni Versace, I believe it's the same people that did the O.J. Simpson thing that have now done.
It is. It kind of came as like it's just sort of the second season in the series. So when I watched the O.J. one, that was awesome. I think a lot of people will agree. And then that was sort of last year. Then I kind of went off the Netflix, and then when I got back into it, it just sort of popped up as like the second season. So it was kind of like, okay, well, if this is going to be half as good as OJ, then I'm going to watch it. The only difference, I guess, in the two is that I sort of remember, very kind of vividly, for lack of a better word, when the OJ thing was when the whole OJ trial was happening, this is like way back. I must have been in grade 2 or something like that.
No, you wouldn't.
But I actually remember that. So the OJ thing was, I guess, a little bit closer to home or to my heart. Whereas, and again, I don't remember all the details because I was too young to understand it. But I remember, it being in the news and people talking about it. My parents talking about it with the neighbors and things like that. So it was like a huge kind of part of, I guess, I don't know, current events at that time. With the Versace thing, not the same for me anyways. So that was kind of a cool thing about watching the OJ. Have you watched it, by the way, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, and one thing I would say to go on what you're saying is the O.J. Simpson trial, I think the facts are pretty apparent to most people who even see the O.J. Simpson one. If you watch the Versace one, you're going to learn stuff. For instance, one thing I will say that I don't think I'm ruining the show by saying this is this guy was a serial killer. Versace wasn't the only person he shot, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. I think people think that this was a one-off where a crazed fan shot Versace. There's much more to the story. This guy was a sadistic... I don't want to ruin it. The actor who played him is unbelievable. Uh,
I'm sort of on like I don't know episode 4 or 5. So I kind of get that. The interesting thing as well is I'd heard the name Andrew Cunanan. So when this name I think like I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out which one it was, but I know that he was like referenced in a couple of rap songs, and I'm trying to sort of
well, if you
my
remember
brain.
Eminem had a song where he said, "Whoops, it's me, Versace. Whoops, somebody shot me. I was just checking the mail. Get it? Checking the mail." And
Yeah.
that so to be honest, Andy, I think you were older when the Versace thing happened than when the OJ thing happened. However, I think that the OJ thing
Yeah,
got
it was
much
like
more
around
publicity.
'97. Yeah, because they give the timelines in the show and stuff like that. But again, so I'm learning like, and again, you're right that it's like more of you do learn a lot, and as well, I'm really into clothes. I can't say that that I own a lot of Versace items. I have a T-shirt. I have a Versace T-shirt. But I respect the brands as well. So to get sort of more info and history on that, I think is quite cool. And you do learn a lot about Gianni himself and why he designed and how he designed and things like that, which I think is
Well,
super
yeah,
neat.
and one thing I will bring up that he talks about in the thing that I think contributes to the man is his reason for textiling the way he did. He would create certain fabrics that he wanted to feel a certain way by using special combined linens. Like he would take a wool and a silk and make them in a certain way so that they hung in a certain way on your body. And he wanted his stuff to look the way it looked. He wasn't just a name that people slapped on a shitty garment and you were paying for the name. It was really designed in a way that he wanted to make people look and feel. And
You can still see it now. You can still actually see it now in his stuff. And I'm not a super like fashion person, although I do pride myself on my appearance and styling. And like I've never had a stylist. And in fact, if obviously you have friends and people around you, but even if somebody said, "Oh, I think you should," I like that, I don't like that, I didn't care. I always did my own thing. And especially if people were like, "Whoa, that's a bit loud," or like, "Are you sure?" That would like that as soon as somebody was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, that might be," are you sure you want to wear pink? This would like fuel my fire. As soon as I got a raised eyebrow, I was like, this is going in the favorite. This is going in like the top three. So that's how I am anyway. And any of my fans or people who know me or people who are around me, especially in Toronto, will probably know that I was definitely not trying to fit into the crowd in any way. And
yeah,
that's probably going to be a theme that's going to come up throughout the conversation.
no. Well, let's carry on then. Let's dive into the first one. What was your first rave experience? Can you remember it?
Yeah. So I'll give you two. I'll give you my first experience of going out to a sort of an event at night, and then we'll go to like first Jungle rave. So my first, it was a rave. That's the thing. I was going as a concert, thinking it was a concert, but it wasn't. So my first time going out to a concert, I was 13. Um, um, just turned, just turned 13. It was year 2000. I'm born in 1987, so it turned 13 in year 2000. It was February 2000, and it was billed as a concert. Raekwon, Wu-Tang Clan, in the Reverb. Okay, so off I went. Off I went with a friend, with an older friend, probably 16, 17. We went. But it was so for a concert. It was like very rave like. You know what I mean? Like it was like doors open at 10. We probably got there at like 11 or 12. Raekwon didn't come on until like 4 a.m. Okay. And we didn't think he was going to come on. He came, did the do with his crew. It was awesome. Probably lights came on at 5:30 or something like that. We got the Vomit Comet home. At this point in time, I was like still just not, to the parents and stuff. I was just like, going to a friend's house, sleep over at a friend's house. And that lasted quite a few years, even into my MC career. I was still sleeping over at a friend's house. I I was emceeing in front of thousands of people. Yeah, so that would be my first experience. And I also just wanted to also slightly mention on that before I go into my first rave experience, my first jungle rave, that at that time, that's what kind of shortly after got me into hip hop emceeing and freestyling and the battle circuit and all that kind of stuff. But at that time in Toronto, the hip hop scene was kind of like a little rave scene. You know what I mean? It's not like I don't know how it is now actually, but
Well, Andy, if you
back
remember
then,
back then, Eminem, I think in '99 or 2000, he played a show at the Better Living Center. I remember. I went to see him. It was April.
That was supposed to be my first rave, but something came up. I can't remember what, and I didn't end up making it. But I was supposed to go to that Eminem rave party. I think it was like Better Living Center.
It
Right?
was
Did
at
you
the
go to
Better. I was, and to be honest, I think I remember the date, April 26th, because I remember Sounds of Madness was on the same night, and I went to both those parties. And I remember saying to
It's funny
somebody,
how you remember dates as well, eh?
dude, I remember the date, like, but I remember saying to somebody, I don't know, some fucking Eminem guy that went, my name is, that guy's supposed to be there. And I remember having no interest, and then looking at him on the stage going, this guy sucks. That's honestly, those are the thought. And then, fast forward a couple of years later, I'm like, this guy's amazing. I can't believe I saw this guy. But yes, hip hop, and I get your correlation between the hip hop scene and the rave scene.
It was a huge. I mean, like I really for those people who weren't around at the time, I really have to stress. And I mean, so then I went to my first jungle rave about a year later, which I'll tell you about in a sec. But even as I started to sort of get into the jungle raves, I was in grade 9 or even grade 8, and I was going out like 3-4 times a week. And I'd go to like one night I'd go to like a hip hop night, hip hop concert, because they used to have headliners. They used to have like a lot of regular guys from all over the states, West Coast, East Coast, a lot of underground. But it was like a real scene, and a lot of the people were the same people who were going to the jungle parties. And even as an example, they used to, just to show the close correlation, once I started going to the raves, you would usually get, a hip hop guy or two on the bill, especially for the big parties. Like it could be like a really big American guy, or it could just be like Shaw Claire, or it could be like some of the turntable guys in room 2. But it was like that was a huge element directly related to jungle anyways. Now, I don't know how much it was on the happy hardcore side or the other sort of non-jungle side of rave music and raves, but it was definitely like they were related. They were closely related. So when I was going to the hip hop clubs, parties, whatever you want to call them, they were in the same venues as the jungle parties, and there were a lot of the same people. And as you mentioned, it was that same, everybody knew me. And I don't mean to blow my own horn, I probably wouldn't even have said it, but you kind of brought it up. Because I was young, and also, as I mentioned about the style, I was young and I stood out, So yeah, everybody knew me as that.
You were ballsy, Andy. You weren't just young and in style, you were ballsy.
I was super ballsy, and that's not even blowing my own horn. I mean, I even look at it now and it's like a bit cringy, but I was like, I really didn't give a fuck.
But good for you. Kudos to you, because you got to where you are today by being that. One of the things that's really cool about watching someone like yourself through life is to see you have a dream and pursue it. And there's a lot to be said about that. Regardless of your achievements, to see your pursuit it's commendable. And I watched you since you were a little guy, man. And you are
One thing I gotta say as well is that dreams change, but passion doesn't. So I have obviously the same as well, and the same love, and aspirations for jungle drum and bass. But I also have other things going on now. But I'm still doing my best to attack life with that same gusto. So.
Well, good for you, man. You wanted to talk about your first jungle experience, did you?
Yeah, so first jungle rave, right? So after sort of a year on the hip hop scene, and so maybe we'll come back to it later, but I also do want to touch a bit about because before I was a jungle MC, I was like a hip hop MC. I was MCLA before I was a jungle MC, and I did a couple of impressive, what I'm proud of anyways, on the hip hop, Toronto hip hop circuits, which the majority of people probably didn't know. So we can touch on that in a sec, but I will answer your question. First Jungle Rave, Sound Clash, March 3rd, 2001, venue Luxor, headlined by Skibbity Shabbity and Fearless. I mean, if you were a Toronto person, if you were a Toronto raver, jungle raver at that time, you were either there or you knew about it. You know, you knew that you missed something special. You heard the tapes, whatever. So that was my first party.
That was one thing I want to say. The two things I remember about Sound Clash the most are the referee uniforms that all the MCs wore, and Catty Cat doing that ba ba da da ba ba da na.
Yo, and shout out to Caddy as well. I'll give he's gonna I'll give him a little segment in a second. But big up Caddy, you very, very iconic and part of the reason I am who I am and why we're having this conversation now. So, but yeah, so that was my first party. Standout things that I remember about that: taking the subway with like 10, 15 friends who were like all older, 16, 17. I was in grade 9, I was 14. I was in grade 8. Man. Just turned 14.
No, you weren't 14 yet. If you were in grade 8, you had not turned 14 yet. Grade 8 is 13.
I was February birthday, man. February birthday.
Is that right? I might be wrong then. I'm a March birthday. No, that shouldn't mean nothing, dude. Because you're 11 turning 12. 12 turning 30. Yeah, you should be 14 not until you're in grade 9. I'm pretty sure, Andy.
No. Aaron, man. Believe me and trust me.
Yeah?
I'm 14. It was March 2001. I'm 87. I guarantee it, because I was like going, so that was my first rave. I remember like the day of my graduation from grade 8. Which would have been June of that year of 2001, going to System Sound Park, going to Body Rock.
So that's after. I get you.
100% grade 8. Facts are facts, bro.
Facts are facts, man. There's no arguing the fact. You're right.
And then you know what else I'll tell you? And then it didn't take long for me to appear on my first flyer, which was Gunja Smile, September 2001. And that is right when I started high school. And I was at high school and just started grade 9 because the event was on September 20th. So, like, in first week of high school, show up with a stack of flyers, handing out flyers to kids at my high school. And it was, of course, all these, one thing that we have to remind everybody about as well, who might not know, the majority of the events at this time, or at least all the ones that we're going to talk about, were all ages. Which meant that it wasn't an over 19, it was recommended 16 plus, and I had to fight sometimes.
I remember they had a rule where if you were under 16, you had to go home by 10 o'clock or something. I remember there was a stupid rule where kids that came that were under 16, they had to wear a special wristband and they had to go home, and it might have been 2 o'clock actually, not 10 o'clock. But there was, I don't know if you
any of that. I don't remember any of that.
You were never held to it, Andy. You were different. You weren't one of those kids. But I do remember having, as a promoter, I remember having that having to deal with those people. And
in Turbo, when you're doing things in Turbo?
I never did anything in Turbo myself.
Did you not do anything in Turbo? Oh, you're talking, okay. You're a bit later. No, because I was just thinking, Platinum Vibes. I know you...
Well, I wasn't Platinum Vibes. No, Platinum Vibes was Dima.
Did you MC for them?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I MC'd for Platinum Vibes. So if you look at like Ryan Morrow, PvP. PvP is Platinum Vibes performer, right?
Absolutely. I thought it was Platinum Vibes Productions.
Sure. But here's the thing is, I was Red Out Productions, right? Ryan, the DJ Doctor and DJ Weedcat, they were Red Out Productions as well. Yep. And we were all a part of the Big Bud crew. And when Dylan died, Dylan and Ray that did Big Bud, right? Dylan was friends with Dima and Emil, who were friends with Ryan, who were friends with us, and that's why we were part of the Big Bud crew. So when Dylan died,
Gotcha.
everyone kind of opened their own thing. Dima and Emil became Platinum Vibes. We became Red Out Productions. If you remember Steve took over Big Bud.
Yep.
Okay, so Steve ran with the Big Bud name. Without going into a long story, like everyone kind of went their own ways, but we all still supported it. Like it's almost like, you know, when they say when they close a door and a window opens. So R.I.P. Dylan. But when Dylan passed, we all separated and created all these different groups that became these different promotion companies that did great things.
Sure.
But yes, I was not a member. The members were Emil, Dima, and Ryan, I believe, and Ovik might have been involved.
And Ryan.
But
Sure.
But no, I never threw anything at Turbo. Clubs I used, I can think of like the Speakeasy, if you remember that place. I used the Reverb, Big Bop, all them. And to be honest, Reverb, Big Bop is the place I can remember having the issue at the door where the kids had to get the special wristbands. And it wasn't a bad thing, but if you remember, the owners there was Dominic. He's a very nice guy. And he just did everything by the book, you know, and that's what the law was at the time. And we had...
He tried. Yeah, he
But anyways,
there was more than one time where I was like having troubles getting into Reverb, especially like 19 plus events and stuff like that, which I got into. You can guarantee I got into everything, but I had to have conversations with them a couple times.
I remember you getting, to be honest, I remember a time at the docks. I don't remember specifically what had happened. Maybe you can clear it up. But they had sent you away at the door. So you decided to come through the other line, and you were trying to cut your way through, and you had a reason. You're like, no, guys, I'm supposed to get through. And people were like, fuck it, get out of here. And you're like, no, and you just ducked your way through. You said something to the guy at the door, and you got in. But I'm like, what the fuck did he say over there that didn't work, that worked over here? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Not really, because Docs, thinking about it now, Docs used to give me loads of different problems. They were quite like, I remember just the way that they rolled. They used to like sort of like deny people entry if they were like drinking a beer in the line and all kinds of. That never happened to me personally.
If you remember the way the setup is, Andy, what it was you had gone into, remember where the guest list entrance is? It's off to the right when you walk up. So you had gone up that way, said something, they wouldn't let you in, so you decided to come back to where the general admission people line up.
I was just about to say, I think it would have been, I think of all the different times, I think I may remember that one. I think it was like a Big Bud thing, and I'd gone through the guest list entrance because I was on the guest list are supposed to be, but I think that I didn't know the girl who was working the list, and she just took one look at me and she was like, "You're not on the guest list, go through. If you want to go through that way, it's $40." So I just pushed my way through, as you do, and then just ended up getting it for free, of course, because that's just, that's how we did.
That's how little Andy did. That's how he does. But okay, I gotta get this going, man. We said we were only gonna do 15 to 20. We're already on to 35, and I'm not even halfway through my questions.
We are not. Jesus Christ. Okay, yeah. Cool. Let's go.
Okay.
Fire away.
I gotta ask you, who I think that there's only one name that stands out to me when I think of this, but I don't want to taint it by saying who I think this is. But who would you say was your number one inspiration to MC? Hold on. You know what? Let me rephrase the question, because you kind of talked about it with the Raekwon thing, saying that kind of inspired you to want to get on the mic. I don't want to hear about your inspiration. I want to hear about your influences. When you do drum and bass chatting, who would you say is your biggest influence?
Well, I know what you're going to say. I know what everybody's going to say. I know what everybody's thinking. My favorite MC was Shabba.
There it is.
It still is, and I think you and I wouldn't be shocked if you answered the same way. One thing that I do have to say though is that I really listen to everyone. I was like a big kind of like dissector of music. So although Shabba was my favorite, he just, I don't know, he just always stood out to me more than everybody else. I liked his, when he was like going back to back with Skibba, I thought that that when Shabba came on it, I got a little bit more hype. But I liked Skipper too. I liked everyone. So Shabba was my favorite, but like I pretty much listened to everybody and tried my best to take it and do my own thing with it.
Well, you've done a great job, and to be honest, Andy, yeah, you definitely have a heavy influence of Shaba. I myself am definitely influenced heavy by Shaba. I liked Ridla as well, and it's coincidental that these are the white guys out of all the MCs. I found my ability to emulate their style of MCing much easier than trying to do something like an IC3 or a Det. Those guys had a style that I just could never come close to. I don't know what it is about their ability, but I just can't put words together like that. So there was something about those guys like Shaba and Ridla when I listened to their, I don't know, the way that they compound syllables, the way they structure their rhymes. I was like, I can do this.
Sure.
I can work with these kind of bop stuff rather than, I don't know how to describe what IC3 and Det do, other than they are definitely riding the hell out of a beat in a way that I can't do it.
Yeah, they go a little bit different. One thing that I'll say as well. So yeah, I mean, drum and bass is a different kind of music compared to whatever we were listening to before. So when you start listening to it, and when you start listening to MCs, you're gonna be influenced by it. You're gonna get a sort of a template to say, okay, this is how you work it, if you will. But one other thing that I would say for me, anyways, is that I was also heavily influenced by dancehall reggae. Like the Bounty Killer, like the hard stuff. Even before I got into MCing and stuff, like I mean, when I first heard like guys like Red Rat and stuff like that, I was like, yo, this is really cool. One thing I also remember about Red Rat in particular, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but that was like one of the first guys that I heard that like not even him as an MC, it was like the beats and like that whole album, Tied Up Skirt, Shelly Ann, all that stuff, for those who know. It was one of the first things that when I heard it, it kind of made me like gyrate a bit. It was the first thing that kind of like, made me sort of move involuntarily to the music, which was different. I didn't get that from hip hop. I didn't get that, and I didn't understand anything about reggae. I didn't understand. It was like I said, like super subconscious. So the one thing about Shabba and Riddler that you mentioned is those guys were heavily influenced by Jamaican dancehall. Like, so if they influenced us to have our jungle styles, they were influenced by dancehall reggae heavily. So that was like that's another thing why perhaps our styles, or more my style anyways, was more similar to theirs, because then I started like really focusing on the reggae. And that also actually, interestingly and ironically, had to do with, for me anyways, the way I dressed a little bit later on, because a little bit later on I started to really get into the dancehall reggae visuals, and to watch the concerts and stuff like that from Jamaica. And I mean, those guys were like my real superstar celebrity guys at a certain point in time, a few years into my career, like guys like Bounty Killer, later on like guys like Vibe Cartel, etc. So, and people would say, oh, you dress like, why are you trying to dress like those British guys? Some people would say. And so first of all, my first answer to that question now would be, well, because it was different. It was like different to what everybody else was wearing. You know what I mean? So and it was different, and I felt that it was cool because it was the style. I found the styles of guys I looked up to, and the fact that I was different than everybody else was just a bonus. So in that sense, I think that what I was looking to for influence wasn't necessarily those guys, but myself, as well as Shabba and Riddler and Skibba and all the rest, all of them, especially stylistic wise, was all focused on Jamaica. So rather than saying, oh, I'm looking like Shabba and trying to emulate his style and fashion, I was looking to Jamaica, the same place that they were. And that's why, in a sense, it could be similar, but a lot of people didn't know what Bounty Killer looked like, or dressed like, or, acted like, or done the way that they are on stage. Because, like I said, then I really started to watch the concerts and the visuals, and then I was like, oh, that's where and I was like, this is cool. But then I was like, okay, yeah, this puts them into a lot more perspective for me, because they didn't just invent everything out of thin air. The British jungle MCs, they got it from somewhere, and I found out where, and I just told you and everybody who's listening.
Well, and I do that with a lot of music I listen to. The one that stands out the most when I think of that line of thinking is Queen. I loved Queen. Well, I still love Queen. I love Freddie Mercury. So I decided I'd figure out, well, who did Freddie listen to? Because a lot of times when I listen to the bands that influence the bands I like them too. So it didn't turn out well with Freddie Mercury, though, because he grew up listening to opera, which comes apparent when you hear the way he did rock music. So
it's nice to know. It's nice to know, though, isn't it? And you kind of get more
appreciation and understanding.
Yeah, and you understand stuff more. You go, oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Well, like you said, there is no virgin thought, and I've had this argument with people. It's a great philosophical debate.
There are some. A lot of these guys that we're talking about, including Shabba and Riddler. I mean, these guys originated it. They birthed something that wasn't.
Well, hold on. Let me say
around.
something. Let me talk about virgin thought to me. Like, if I say to you, gold mountains don't exist. Gold mountains don't exist. However, gold and mountains do exist. So all I've done is taken two things that exist and combined them to make a new thing that doesn't exist, right? So that's not a virgin thought, though. That's borrowing from what is and then combining. And that's what I think these people have done. They've borrowed, like you said, from their own influences and then created this sound that we have. We then borrow from that to evolve. And, it's dissected and somewhat diluted through evolution. But to me, like you say, nobody woke up one day and created music. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh my God.
One thing, though, different between me and you, I think, I don't know, perhaps would be, I don't know how much actual patois you used and how much understanding of that whole side of things you
very
really
minimal.
Use. But for me, I really use that shit. It's a shame that you had the one with Caddy before we did, because Caddy, I'm sure if we got Caddy on a three-way right now, he would just love to dive into this conversation. And you know what? That's also another reason why I connected so strongly with Caddy, as well as a lot of the other guys, because we really had that in common. You know what I mean? When I could tell when I got in a room with another guy who was as passionate about dancehall reggae as I was, including, and R.I.P., rest in peace, God bless his soul, including Storming. That's how him and I connected, was introduced via Shabba, but then right away, I knew that he was kind of into it, so I just started talking to him about that, and that's really how we connected. And he was another guy who's very, very, very much heavily influenced and into the dancehall reggae vibes. Even one of the last songs that he recorded and shot a visual for before he passed on was actually a reggae song, and the song was recorded and the video was filmed in Jamaica. So it was a great way to connect with it, and it was real, and it was organic. Because you can't deny it. If I've got, if I've got the passion and I've got the, Rolodex, I'm like an encyclopedia of dancehall. So I started talking to some of these guys, and they're like, and they're going, oh yeah, but this and that, and I'm going, no. I go, but what about this time and this date and this clash? And they're like, whoa, what's going on here? But you can't fake that, and I wasn't passionate about it to try to impress those guys. I just liked it. You know what I mean? So.
Well, that's good. Yeah. You know what? I can honestly admit, I think I said rinse out for years before I learned what rinse out meant. So asking me if I speak the tongue, I can say I imitated it a lot, but it wasn't until I would say I was in my
No, but
mid
for me,
20s.
for me, even until late, I was really into dance hall. I even used to, I mean, if there was points in time where if you would have rang me, I would have said wagwan, and that was fully serious. That's Jamaican way of saying what's up, and I would say that to anyone. That was my greeting, wagwan. And at the time, that's where I was at. It was not a joke or a game or anything else like that to me. I'm not in that same place now, but at the time I was. And the people that knew me, such as Caddy, especially Caddy, you know, I guess you could say real recognizes real, and he respected me for who I was, and that was who I was at the time, and of course it's still a part of me now. Even though we change, we evolve. I've moved to several different countries in between then, but I still like dancehall. I think it's gone a bit different in a different direction, but it doesn't change any of the facts, that I just mentioned.
What amazes me about dancehall is some of the lyrical content is very homophobic, and people will, the same people who probably don't, here's the thing, they probably don't know what the lyrics are or mean, and they probably have political views that are contrary to what the lyrics are in the songs they're playing. When I hear some drum and bass sets, let's say, the most infamous one is Sloot M. Sloot M became very popular at a time where
It's talking about murdering gays. It's nothing more about actually murdering all gays. That's what it is. Just in case anybody didn't know, now you know.
okay, now you know. There you go. But it's not just to say that that's about dancehall. There's many musics that have songs within them that are very happy sounding or have people on the dance floor singing along to. And if you just knew what you were dancing or singing to, you might not like. Dancehall, I just say, is full of them. And infamously,
Well,
there are a
you
lot.
know, well, yeah, that you're absolutely right, and I can also pitch in my 2 cents on that. I guess my enjoyment of why I like dance hall, right? There's a lot of, I want to say, crap content, like a lot. So there's a lot of homophobic stuff. There's a lot of like really weird like relationship stuff in there, the way that they look at women and relationships, and things like in dance hall, and I guess, but this goes to Jamaican culture more. It's very like common for them to talk a lot about sex in reference to money, or to money in reference to sex and things like that, and women, like the female artists, saying, "Oh yeah, my pussy's so good, I want a man with 100 grand and this and that, and I've got platinum punani," and again, because I wasn't just listening to it just for the way it sounded, I was really into it. Not to say that I agreed with it, because as I hope everybody is realizing by this conversation, I'm a very intelligent person with my own, strong opinions about life and everything else like that. So there's a lot of this really weird kind of stuff that didn't really mesh with reality in Canada or common sense. I do, however, think it was a lot closer to the reality on the roads in Jamaica. I've never been to Jamaica, but I can only gather based on the music and my in-depth knowledge of it, of the music anyways. And so there was a lot of crap, a lot of total crap, a lot of gun stuff, like a lot of heavy gun, gang, anti-gay, weird sort of relationship ideas. And this was also at a formative time for me, right? But so I'll tell you what. So I didn't really particularly like a lot of those concepts, because I had a brain and I was like, okay, this doesn't really make sense to me. It doesn't work for me. But what I did like. So I'll tell you exactly what I liked. I liked the beats. Okay. I liked obviously the artists. I liked their voices. I like my favorite ones anyways. Like their voices, like the way they spit. I like the lyrics, but not necessarily the content. I more like the way that they spit their bars, the way that they, enunciated and did their syllable type of things that you were talking about, and I could use that. And when a guy does a good verse, had to understand, because even though I didn't agree with the content, I had to have enough knowledge. I was understanding what the songs were about and the points that they were making. Even though I didn't agree, I liked the way that they were articulating the points. I thought it was extremely clever.
Well, it is,
and
and
these guys are extremely talented.
there's
And of course, just the style and swagger they had, and the fact that they were icons and celebrities. I really appreciated that. Even though, as I said, I never held a gun. I'm never going to hold a gun. You know what I mean? Like things like that. But a lot of my favorite songs, because they were on the best beats, they had the best verses, where they were spitting in the coolest ways, were about guns. We're about killing people. We're about killing gays. Shit like that. Really, really bad stuff. And I knew it as well. I wasn't ignorant. I wasn't listening to it ignorantly and not knowing what they were talking about. And nor did I agree with it either. Just because they said it, I didn't become a gang member. You know what I mean? Like, but I like the way that they did it.
Yeah, I get what you mean. There's something to be said about the rhythm within the rhythm, the way that they're able to structure their flow, and yeah, we can mimic some of those sounds. I've got one I'm writing right now that is structurally very reggae, so it's definitely, and my influence. I don't listen to that music, but I'm influenced by third party to that music.
Sure. Sure.
Okay, with that, I've just got a couple more questions to ask you here, buddy.
Sure.
What would you consider the highlight of your music career?
There's a few, I guess. Gosh. Toronto stuff, I would say one of the major like official ones for me that came later on is when I was booked by Ruckus to MC at, I think it was the last One Sound event. That was always like when I started raving. I think there might have been one or two that I didn't go to, but that was always known to me as like, this is like a busy kind of headliney rave, but all the headliners are like the top Toronto guys. So if you're on a One Sound, that means that you're sort of been acknowledged as you're in it. You know what I mean? Even when the booking came through, I was like, wow, and it was like, and he's like, yeah, do you want to do it? And I was like, do I want to do it? Like, are you kidding me? So that was that was one, getting booked on One Sound. Other highlights, just loads of bookings that I did that I never thought I would get to do. Also, like a lot of unofficial stuff, like just getting invited by a lot of my idols to sort of, even if I wasn't on the bill, they would like invite me on the mic and stuff like that, and that was really, it really meant a lot. And there was like a point in time, whether I was booked or not, and then it did start to lead to more bookings, but it was like whether I was booked or not, if Shabba was in town, he would invite me on, he would invite me to MC with him at certain points in time on the set, or Skibba, or like a lot of guys, like a lot of like where I'm looking back now and going, or I don't know if looking back or more, I always kind of look at it from the kid looking forward and going, would you have ever thought that you'd be doing any of this stuff? And I guess like the last one was I was invited once, and I wasn't booked, but GQ had invited me on the mic at Wenth, to MC with him in NDC. One point in time, I think you know what I mean. I think they were doing a long set, and we were just sort of there and all partying, and then he was like, yeah, plug in a mic, and then off we went for like 2 hours, and it was amazing. It was like 5,000 people, and things like that. So that's the Toronto side. England side, similar, but a lot more official. So being actually hired by people that I respect to MC at their events, some of whom include Bassman to MC at his several of his birthday bashes as well as Trigger. Those are guys who I only really got into and really got to know later on. Later on in my career. And when I did show up, like I met them just before I moved to England. But when I did show up, they were like, yeah, come, and they were really hiring me.
We
And
were
then, of
just
course,
talking.
Shabba,
Sorry to cut you
Shabba.
off, Andy. We were just talking about the Jamaican influence in the lyrics. Isn't Bassman a good example of that?
Bass is bass, man. I can't think. Yeah, I can't even hardly think of any words to describe him, other than the fact that yes, absolutely, he is of a sound system background, and he MCs with that Jamaican style, absolutely. And you know what? And if we want to go into it as well, and a lot of the Jamaican themes that I was just talking about as well.
Exactly.
If you actually listen to Bassman's lyric. But yeah, so a lot of the stuff in England was all, a lot of the highlights, I guess you could say, was almost the same as in Toronto. Just getting the respect from the guys that I respected, and and real respect. And to me, hiring me to MC on your event when you're also hiring, guys who, like yourself, who I think are above my status or I look up to, means a lot. And another probably huge main highlight would be getting my residency on Cool FM, which is, for those that don't know, and as a resident, I can give you a very brief history. Cool FM's the longest running jungle drum and bass pirate radio station. What pirate radio means, it's an illegal radio station. A couple of guys decided that they wanted to broadcast their music that wasn't going to get broadcast on a legal station like the BBC. So you can get, in England anyways, it is possible to acquire a transmission technology to transmit your own broadcast illegally.
Hey, we could do it here too, Andy. You can do it here. You can do it anywhere.
Yeah, but I think the main reason why they never did it in Canada is because the laws or something like that, or that they felt, people felt like if they did it, that I'm sure probably people tried.
I was going to say, Andy,
down.
in my opinion, the only reason why people in Toronto haven't done it is because they haven't needed to. We've had FM radio support since day one, in my opinion, going as far back as CFNY and Energy 108, and now today you've got 89.5 still doing it.
It's
and
true.
The internet is really...
You know what? It's true, because we always had that. It's true. We had college stations, and that was like the community radio, which serves the exact same purpose as pirate radio did. Back to Cool FM, they're the longest, like I said, they're the longest running pirate station. They're established in 1991. They're still running and broadcasting in the same pirate style on the same frequency in London. And they basically, to be honest, I can't think of anyone MC-wise who didn't come up in the ranks of Cool FM. So we're talking literally every single MC that we've mentioned in this conversation, and people that we haven't, like Stevie Hyper D, R.I.P., in my opinion, the greatest to ever do it. Raga Twins, Navigator, Skiba, Shabba, Fun, Riddler, X-Man, Foxy, like Cool FM. We all look at Foxy as a huge, big-time celebrity, one of also the best to ever do it. Cool FM made Foxy's career. He got on in 96 and 97. And all of those guys, anybody who you speak to, will still speak about Cool FM with that same respect. It is the be-all and end-all for a kid coming up in the game. And also, I also have to say it was not easy. That was one of the hardest things that I ever did, and it was one of the main goals. And it was hard to get on, but it was something that I knew that I could do. And even when I was like thinking, oh, this, maybe I should go to another, because like I could, I always wanted cool, but I was like, oh, maybe I should just focus on another station, because this is just, it's too hard, or maybe it's not for me. But then somebody would like come in my ear, also like, I had a conversation with Brocky, who's one of the founders of Cool FM, and he was like, no, you want to be on Cool, you need to get on Cool. I'll do whatever I can do to help you. I can't make you my MC. I've already got debt. You know what I mean? But I back you. Just find your show. Just find a show, find the right place where you fit in, and you've got my support. And I have a lot of respect for Brocky. He was one of the first guys who I met via interview, but we quickly became friends, and we stayed friends up until now. So that would be one of my real career highlights. And no matter what happens, I've still got the hundreds of hours that I did on Cool. I mean, when I got on Cool, when I actually got on, I was like doing 3 to 4 shows a week. I had my show with Scanner, so big up Scanner as well. But then I was just doing various shows. I was just as much as I could possibly get on that station, because I wanted it so bad. And I took it. So that would probably be one of the major highlights, and especially of recent years and of all time. Yeah, Cool FM, big up. And they're still on, and you can also check out coollondon.com, and then that'll give you all the different details of how you can hear us, like on Facebook and.
I think it's safe to say, Andy, anybody who's listening to this show, if you don't know what Cool FM is, stop listening to this show. It's Cool FM, cool with a K, and I don't know what else to say other than what Andy's already said. With that, I'm going to dive into the last 2 questions here, Andy. Where can we hear or see LA Now? Now, whatever you tell me, I'm going to leave links below when we post this video. So if there's any music people could go to listen to you, any shows you got coming up, let's say not in the next week, but maybe in a couple months from now that you'd like to talk about, please let us know.
The honest answer, as of right now, is nowhere. So where you can hear LA 2017 or 2018, is nowhere. I'm not living in the UK right now. I'm living in Spain, and where I'm at, there's nothing for me to do really. So that would be the answer. Have you heard the last of me, or if I told you the last thing that you can hear from me, would that be the last thing that you would hear from LA? Definitely not. But where can you hear me now? Nowhere. And that's just me being honest. And with total respect to everybody else, I hear some people who aren't doing much, kind of, when they get asked that question, they kind of what's the word I'm looking for?
Lip service?
They kind of flip-flop through it and go, oh well, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing loads, and then when they try to explain what they're doing, other than the fact that they're quote unquote doing loads, they're not actually doing anything. They're like, oh yeah, it's going to be a big festival season, but you're not booked for any festivals, so or you can't confirm any, you can't say where you're playing, so I'm not gonna go that road in front. Like, I've got this, like 2018 is my biggest year. I've just got other priorities right now, but again, it's not the last of me.
Well, that's good. Okay, last question for you, buddy. If you've listened to my show, then you know what this is going to be. If you could put 5 items into a vault that would encapsulate our rave culture, what would those 5 items be?
I should have prepared for this one.
And this is good. You're not the first that knows the question and says, I should have prepared. That's awesome.
Okay. Turntables in a mixer.
All right.
I'm gonna class that as 1.
Yes, of course. And you got to throw a mic in, Andy. If you're gonna 2 turntables in a mixer, you got to throw a mic, right?
You're not supposed to help me, but obviously the mic was going to be the second, so I don't need to cheat and go two turntables, a mixer, monitors, blah, and a mic. So it's two turntables and a mic representing a DJ or CDJs or a laptop or whatever they're using now. So the DJ equipment, so a microphone to represent us. This is a toughie. I'm also gonna throw a radio in there.
Why a radio?
Based on everything that I just mentioned, I think that radio is such a huge part of.
So hold on, can we say a radio that can only play Cool FM?
Yeah, but it can play other stations.
Well, what good is a radio that you take out of the vault and play Hits 103?
Okay, okay, yes, a radio playing classic drum and bass. So that could be Cool FM, that could be tape packs, that could be anything. But a radio playing classic stuff that you've never heard before on the radio.
Okay.
On the radio for
Okay.
free access to it. And this could also be internet radio now, but it's still a huge influence. There's now a newish station, internet only, that's come out called Rough Tempo. And there, radio was kind of, in a lot of other ways, a lot of people would say it's sort of an antiquated media form. Like some people say, oh, nobody really listens to radio, but it's such an integral part of our culture that people still are listening, and the quality, especially of drum and bass radio consistently, and the types of guys who go on drum and bass radio is still really big, and they're still getting big listener numbers and able to do their events, and Cool's still running, as well as many other pirate stations in London anyways. So I throw a jungle radio in there. So we've got text, a mic, jungle radio. For me, I hate to say this on a bad influence, but I have to do me, and I don't think it's quite as negative. Don't take this in the wrong way. I have to throw weed in there.
What the fuck? That wasn't bad, man. I was expecting like a bump kit or a mirror or something.
Yeah, but I never.
Oh, weed.
But the thing is, I personally, I was never really huge into the drugs culture, like the anything above weed culture. I was like, I mean, you know me. I was a weed person. That was also, to be fair, it was another thing that connected me with a lot of people. We connected over weed, and it's not as sinister as people would think. Like, oh, you connect over a mirror at 8 in the morning. It was like, yeah, we smoke weed. Like, people who tend to smoke weed tend to be pretty chilled out. Like, that was part of the dance hall, part of the jungle. So where we at? We're at 4.
4.
Right? I have one more. That would encapsulate rave culture. For me, something that I think that would be sort of like the fine, shining example. And like I said, I wish I thought it out better, because I probably could have made this into one item and dropped out the radio and blah, blah, blah. I would also include a recording, one specific recording of Nicky Blackmarket and Stevie Hyper D from somewhere between the years of 96 to 97. As for me, the sort of shining trophy moment of the best of the best of the best for me. So that's it. So that's 5 items that represent the DJ, the MC, the pirate radio, the weed, and then a sort of a summary one summary recording as like if you want to kind of have an idea of what's going on. And like I said, if I would have thought out better, I could have probably just said Nikki Black Market, Stevie Hyper D on Cool FM and had another item, because they were also on Cool FM. They had quite a legendary show on the Sunday, which was the big day on Cool FM, and this is also something that, you know, I mean, I don't know how much more I can stress it. When I got on Cool, I was like, I'm in royalty. It would be like if you were a hip hop MC and you got signed to Def Jam. You know, you're like, okay, I'm amongst greatness, greatest of the greatest. It doesn't get better than this, you know, and that's why I fought so hard for it. So yeah, those are my items.
Those are great items, buddy. And with that, I got to say, like, it's 8 o'clock here, which means it's 2 o'clock in the morning where you are, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right?
Cool. I'm cool.
Okay. You know what? Here, stay on the.
I know you want to go. You're not. Don't worry about what time it is here. If you want to go, you go. But no. What I guess, you know what, all I'll do is I guess I'll have a quick little, you know, sort of parting statement. So first of all, and this isn't like rehearsed or anything like that, but I just want to say, so first of all, to you, thank you for having me, and thank you for doing what you're doing. I think it's a great thing that you're doing, and you're sort of bringing it to different, you know, you're obviously just, you know, helping a lot of us sort of relive where we were at, but you're also bringing it to new people, or people who perhaps weren't there or haven't heard all these stories. So I think it's great, and I think you do it in a really accessible and a clear and concise way. So I think that that's absolutely great. So I want to thank you for both having me and for just doing what you do. And I want to say big up, and you know, and you're keeping it alive in your own way. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you, buddy.
I want to send a specific shout out to everybody in Toronto. You know, I haven't been there for a while. So I don't know exactly what's going on out there, but like Toronto, I mean, I'm Toronto. I'm always going to be a drum and bass kid from Toronto. T.A.F made me who I was. It is who I am, and I couldn't really have done it without being Canadian and being from there and being a part of a really special scene at a really special time. And yeah, I mean, there was a lot of other things I want to talk about. I really want to shout out Caddy Cad. This guy was he's in my opinion, you know, one of the, you know, founding forefathers of what we do in our city, and he's one of the guys who really supported me. I mean, this guy, again, I don't want to talk on his behalf or big myself up on his behalf, but I mean, this guy really believed in me. You know, even when I didn't, he was he believed in me more than I did. You know, and I think, I don't think I'm the only one, but I mean, thank you, Caddy. And just, you know, just like I said, I can't go, I could talk for ages, so I don't want to go into too much more, but I just want to say thank you to everyone for listening, for being a part of it in whatever capacity, at whatever time, and just peace, love, positive vibes, you know, and I haven't heard the last of me. I'll be back. I'll be back in England, I'll be back in Canada, and hopefully further afield.
Well, that's awesome. Here, stay on the phone with me right now. I'm going to say goodbye to the listeners, and then I'm going to talk to you for a couple minutes, okay? Can you stay there?
Absolutely.
All right,
Thank you.
Bear with me a moment. All right, guys, that was him. MC, don't call him Law. It's L.A., representing Canada over in Spain. So hopefully he gets back to this side of the Atlantic and we get to see him again. But don't look for him in 2018. As he said, there's no point. As always, guys, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, peace out.